The November 24th, 2020 meeting of the Planning and Economic Development Committee will now come to order. Clerk, please call the roll call.
Mr. Baines.
Here.
Mr. Baines is present. Mrs. DeFlorio.
Here.
Mrs. DeFlorio is present. Mr. Lee. Mr. Lee, I think you're on mute.
Here.
Mr. Lee is present. Mrs. Smith.
Here.
Mrs. Smith is present. Chairman Wilt.
Present.
Chairman Wilt is present.
We will need to suspend the rules of the legislature for the purpose of prohibiting public in-person attendance in accordance with Executive Order 202.1, which was extended through December 3rd by the Executive Order of 202.72. You have a non-debatable motion on your agenda which needs a marker and a second, a maker and a second.
Moved. Second.
Legislator DeFlorio.
Moved by Legislator DeFlorio, second by
Smith.
by Legislator Smith. All in favor, please signify by saying aye. Go ahead.
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Item carries. Is there anyone signed up for the public forum?
There's no one signed up for the public forum, nor were any written comments submitted.
Our next item on the agenda is presentation by Bob Franklin, Chief Financial Officer, who is here to present the 2021 proposed Monroe County budget.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I will go to a, Jack, share screen, down at the bottom. There we go. First time. All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Our 2021 budget presentation as it pertains to the Planning and Economic Development Committee. This should be a brief presentation as usual. Just throw that out there. Looking at the nice little pie chart here, there's really just three primary revenue sources for our Planning and Development Department. I think many of you know real property taxes fund about half of the department's operations. We have a community development block grant that funds a little more than a quarter of the department. And then we have reimbursement from COMIDA and the MCIDC that combined funds a little less than the final quarter of the department's revenue. Just looking at the department's overall appropriations and revenues. When I put this slide together, originally the difference between the adopted and the amended budgets for planning services kind of jumped out at me. I did look back over several years. I really couldn't find a year in which there was such a big increase between what we see on the screen and for 2020. Earlier this year, Monroe County did receive almost $371,000 in a census grant for which we amended the Planning Services Division's budget. This might be unique. I did go back to 2010 to see if there was a 2010 census grant, and no, I could not find one, at least not in the planning budget. Looking forward, many of you probably have already heard about the change we have for the 21 budget, that being the merger of our economic development and our workforce development divisions into one operating division. Those two divisions were inextricably linked anyhow, so the choice was made to eliminate those artificial silo. You'll also probably notice higher appropriations for planning services, lower appropriations for economic and workforce development. I'll point out the primary driver of the higher planning services appropriations pretty much relates to allocating more of the director's pay and benefits to this particular division, and an appropriation of about $100,000 to support a study of community broadband internet access. Looking at the decrease in the combined Economic and Workforce Development Division, pretty much relates to changes in the staffing composition and lower appropriations for mileage and travel costs. And then on the revenue side, the department is receiving just over $183,000 of additional funding from our Community Development Block Grant. That's really related to New York State allocations of the COVID-19 funding they received from the federal government. The increase we're receiving in the block grant will fund an additional $10,000 in the Planning Services Division, an additional $10,000 in Economic and Workforce Development, and lastly, an additional $163,000 in change within Community Development. And just 3 more slides to wrap up. I'd like to take a couple minutes just to touch upon 3 significant planning projects in the works. You've all probably have heard about these already, so I'll try to be brief. Our first one here is a comprehensive plan for Monroe County. The last countywide plan was completed back in 1979. I know that the city and a number of our municipalities actively work to keep their plans up to date and forward-looking. And one of the intents here is to make sure we're not working at odds with the rest of our community. The scope of services we're seeking from a consulting firm to assist with this project. The scope is incredibly broad, significant engagement of the public, assessing our local economy and economic planning, incorporating social equity goals, sustainability elements, and recommending strategies to implement actionable decisions. And in addition to the 2 outputs noted on this slide, the consultant may also have some policy recommendations for us based on their work and the community's input. A second plan, I'm going to include a slide here regarding our climate action plan. And, just to be clear, this is largely a project of DES rather than planning. But staff from planning are certainly participating in helping guide the planning process. The scope of services for which the consulting firm will be engaged here includes evaluating the county's greenhouse gas emissions, identifying options for improving environmental sustainability, and opportunities to strengthen resiliency. The idea really is to address both mitigation actions and means for adaptation. Recommend goals, actions, or policies that are innovative yet achievable, and help us prioritize actions through a transparent and meaningful community outreach and engagement. And then the last slide I have, Mr. Chairman, is a plan for broadband internet access. The COVID-19 pandemic that forced schools to online learning has certainly highlighted the internet access disparities that exist within Monroe County. The consulting firm selected here will help us better understand those access disparities in disadvantaged neighborhoods and in rural communities, and perhaps the options to create access equity. The consultant will also assess Monroe County's fiber optic network and its untapped capacity, and provide us an analysis of the options for its expansion and public availability. I'll just close to say, in general, all of these planning initiatives should give Monroe County a leg up in securing outside funding from either the federal or state governments, perhaps even private grant funding, for the recommendations this county selects to move forward with. And with that, Mr. Chairman, I'm happy to entertain questions.
Thank you, Mr. Franklin. Any questions?
Legislator DeFlorio?
Legislator DeFlorio, go ahead.
Yes, thank you. Through the chair, can you please provide the legislature with a breakdown of all positions that fall under this portion of the 2021 budget that are authorized, funded, and vacant? What we're looking for is a breakdown that includes the title, corresponding budgeted amounts for salary, retirement, Social Security, medical insurance, and dental. And if you could also include the fund department and cost center for each position.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I will note, this has been asked before. I will note that similar requests have been received pretty much each year in the past since I've been CFO. It's a very difficult report to share in the sense that it is a point-in-time report, and given the county's staff turnover and our efforts to recruit new hires renders the report obsolete almost by the next day. It is something that probably is not valuable for future considerations and analysis. Sorry, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Through the chair, can you kind of expand on what the percentage of the Department of Planning and Development budget is mandated versus non-mandated?
Yes, actually, Mr. Chairman, I did mean to bring a list of all the departments for that, and of course I did not. So I will follow up. I will follow up with all the members prior to the budget vote.
Thank you. And through the chair, I think it's great that we are looking to fund a comprehensive development plan. I was active in our town's plan when I was on the town board. Could you tell me where the funding for that plan is in this year's budget?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. We actually have this. This is the one that's in DES, right? Yeah. I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman. This particular plan will be funded by Comida.
Okay. So do we have any estimated, I'm sorry, I'm just trying to figure out how that works. So
yes.
Maybe could you expand on that a little bit in terms of the process?
Yes, actually a request for proposal has been drafted through the Planning Department and Environmental Services staff. The request for proposal was issued for publication the week of November 12th or 13th.
It was published on Friday.
I'm sorry, it was
And
actually
then-
published on
yeah.
last Friday. Responses will be due back probably December,
Right before Christmas, yeah,
right before Christmas.
December 22nd.
Okay. And then
It takes us-
through the,
Yeah, it takes us like, a month or two to actually review these things and then schedule follow-up interviews.
understood. Through the chair, will that contract then come through the legislature, or does that go through Comida? Because I'm just trying to understand the process.
It's, Mr. Chairman, actually both the Community Board and the legislature will have an opportunity to weigh on that.
Thank you. And through the chair, I know that City Place currently holds the office of the Genesee Finger Lakes Regional Planning Council. Are there any plans to relocate them, or I'm not sure if they're actually on a lease or if that's just sort of a kind of a year-to-year agreement. I know there's been concern in the past about that, and I just sort of wanted to touch base on where that was. I sit on the board there.
Mr. Chairman, that's a good question. Certainly, Finger Lakes Planning Council and GTC have come up in conversations in the past. We do have, we have engaged in the past Labella for a spatialization study. We're working with another firm as well. At this time and in recent conversations, no, there was no, there's no plan to move them out of City Place at this time. It's not, of course, set in stone, but at least in the recent conversations, it's not been part of the plan.
Oh, thank you. And
Legislator DeFlorio, I think we lost you.
not sure if I'm for. Not sure if I lost you or everybody got
Yeah,
lost.
I think we have you back now.
Okay.
So I did not hear that question, Mr. Chairman.
Certainly. So if you could expand upon the reasoning behind combining the economic development and workforce development divisions, what the thought process was in doing that?
This is Anna List, the Director of Planning and Development. Through you, Mr. President, the reason behind this merger was because in 2018 or 2017, the New York State Department of Labor performed a review of how Monroe County was expending its WIOA grant dollars. Monroe County is the sole grantee of the WIOA funds that flow through from the Federal Department of Labor through New York State Department of Labor and then to us. And we have a contract with Rochester Works to perform the services mandated by the WIOA grant dollars. And prior to up until 2017, Monroe County was receiving a piece of that grant, which ranges from between $5 and $6 million annually, to the tune of approximately $225,000, and that ceased in the 2018 budget year. The funds were intended to support staff, workforce development staff within the Department of Planning and Development. So we no longer have those funds, and we made the determination that we will strengthen our partnership and expand the closeness with which we work with Rochester Works to implement workforce development initiatives now and going forward.
Thank you. And then through the chair, do you anticipate the performance measures for either, well, so I'm assuming actually, let me rephrase that. Are you anticipating performance measures then for workforce development to be negatively impacted by this change? I mean, there are quite a few performance measures and objectives tied to workforce development in the budget.
Through the chair, we plan on improving upon those performance measures by working with Rochester Works and their board of directors to develop more robust programming and include the ongoing Monroe County Recruiting on the Road job fair efforts. We also have a partnership through COMEDA with Monroe Community College, which we'll soon be discussing more in depth, called Empower. It's a more robust version of what was previously called Ladders Up, and it's tailored to address the needs of the workforce during COVID and double-digit unemployment and moving forward. So we plan on making announcements about that in the near future, and those are not county dollars, those are COMEDA dollars. So we feel that this is a more prudent use of our resources.
Thank you. So just so I'm understanding then through the chair, so you'll be utilizing Rochester Works staff to perform those initiatives as opposed to county staffing?
Yes, that is correct. That's the intention behind our contract. That's the intention of our contract with them as it pertains to WIOA, that we represent over 70% of their operating budget. So we rely on them to conduct the important work of workforce development, one-stop shop. And I, in my capacity as Director of Planning and Development, effectively sit on their board. So this will give me an opportunity to get even more involved in their operations.
Okay, so thank you. So then I guess this leads to my next question. Through the chair, on page 719 of the budget, it appears that the workforce development manager position may have been eliminated. Is that in fact the case?
It is, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you. So again, if you could just expand a little bit then upon the rationale for eliminating this position in terms of sort of the person that's going to be the point person then for the performance measures for workforce development?
Mr. Chairman, I'm just going to tag team with Director Liss on this because I do have a little bit of history and involvement on how that change happened. It was, as Director Liss indicated, 2017, when due to a federal audit of how New York State manages its WIA funding, or WIOA, I think it was WIA at that time, decided that New York State Department of Labor decided that Rochester Works was actually the grant recipient, even though all the contracts and paperwork and federal reporting requirements around the funding require Monroe County to be the grant recipient. When this was first started, Monroe County indeed acted as the grant recipient, contracted in partnership with the City of Rochester with Rochester Works as the designated one-stop labor shop that we are all mandated to designate. Yet Monroe County retained a portion of the WIA funding for our administrative oversight of the grant and its activities. So it came quite a surprise when the federal government in New York State decided that Rochester Works was actually the grant recipient, and if they were going to continue allowing Monroe County to have $225,000, they needed to select us through an RFP process to have that administrative involvement. And they also offered the opinion that doing so would be a waste of time because Rochester Works had also contracted with another entity for a lot less dollar amount to provide mysterious administrative oversight responsibilities and effectively cut Monroe County out of its own grant process. If we are no longer in an oversight role, there really is no reason for Monroe County to have a workforce development manager position. So we have decided to eliminate that division and merge those activities in with economic development, since the two are closely aligned anyhow. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Okay. So moving on to appropriations, through the chair, on page 420, can you expand a little bit upon what professional services are typically used by planning and why we're anticipating a decrease in 2021? I mean, it looks like, go ahead.
Good question, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, the way it looks in the budget is certainly lends itself to that kind of question. Ordinarily, this budget line has had $5,000 for the Farmland Protection Plan. The request for 21, in addition, includes $100,000 for that broadband internet access study that we would like to move forward with.
Got it.
The budget for 2020 looks a little funny and so much higher because earlier this year we received that 2020 census grant. So there's $330,000 buried in professional services related to that.
Thank you. So then, through the chair, just expand upon that a little bit then. Can you tell me what that census money then was utilized for?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. The dollars were disseminated throughout Monroe County to not-for-profit organizations to get their assistance in getting the word out about the census to the community. Organizations that received funds include Catholic Family Charities, Refugees Helping Refugees, Ibero American Action League, and several others. I'll be happy to furnish a list to this committee, and it was to partner with them to make sure that we had a complete count. Many of the organizations, beyond marketing the census, actually worked with individual census takers to help guide individuals, including those with special needs, in filling out the census. It especially impacted folks that had limited access to the internet. So there was a fair amount of door-to-door work that took place, handing out physical censuses and reminding people that they could take the census by phone this year.
Thank you. And a follow-up would be awesome on that. So thank you for that. Through the chair, on page 442 in the appropriations section, under the economic development and workforce salaries, is the increase that we're seeing here a new position or raises for existing position?
There's actually, Mr. Chairman, actually, there's 2 additional FTEs in the combined division. One came from the former workforce development, but there is a new, is it community development?
Yes, we received more CDBG funds
Yes.
with COVID.
So there is a new position here as well.
And I'm sorry, what were those 2 positions? I didn't quite hear you.
Yes, the 2 positions include a community development assistant due to the fact that we received an increase in our CDBG funds for this budget year. And the other position reflects, it was really a changeover, a migration of a position that wasn't in lieu of under community development, and now an economic development specialist. And correct me if I'm wrong, Director Franklin, on the second FTE. Because we created one new position, and one shifted from community development to economic development as an economic development specialist.
Thank you. Through the chair, on page 422, the under mileage, the 54,000 under mileage, how many operations, in terms of how many, with so many of the county operations being remote as a result of COVID and limited outreach, can you tell me what the increase in that mileage budget is for 2021? Well, it was 2020, I'm sorry, and 2021.
Mr. Chairman, I don't actually have the budget for 2019, although clearly on this page it was only $669. I don't know if the budget for 19 was different than 20 or 21, but this particular line is now the combined mileage for any staff local travel from economic and workforce development for items such as like recruiting on the road, meeting with new business, trying to recruit new business to the community. If you want to jump in.
Yes, I can add color commentary to that, Mr. Chairman. In the previous 2 budget years, in the 2020 budget year, there was an increase to 3,000 from 669 due to specifically the recruiting on the road activities, and also to reflect a need for our economic development division, which is now going to be focusing on workforce development as well, to perform proactive outreach and get out into the community to meet directly with businesses. You are correct in pointing out that everything has gone remote, and we held this line steady with somewhat of an optimistic bent, thinking that maybe at some point in 2021 things will start to turn back to normal. We are performing, of course, practicing social distancing and wearing masks. We are getting out the door and meeting with businesses and providing them with information about our economic development and workforce programs. So that's the reason behind that number.
Thank you. And then one last question for me. On that same page, 442, why are there new interdepartmental chargebacks within this department?
Mr. Chairman.
Through the chair.
Those interdepartmental charges it looks like, carried over from the former workforce development division, and they're basically ICAP charges. ICAP is the indirect cost allocation plan submitted each year for the counties.
Thank you. And I'm done.
Mr. Chairman, County Legislator Smith.
Yes, County Legislator Smith? You
Through
have
the
the floor.
chair, page 423. Kind of similar question that Legislator DeFlorio just asked around mileage under community development. I was just wondering, with everything becoming remote, very similar to what she said, outreach opportunities postponed, what accounts for the $4,000 that's being budgeted under mileage?
This also applies to the previous question about economic and workforce development mileage. I should have mentioned that the department received additional funds from COMEDA for these outreach activities. COMEDA contributed $3,000 in 2020 and 2021 for the additional, so it was a wash. And so the $4,000 that you're mentioning is for community development, correct?
Yes.
Yes.
And at the same, so these dollars are not COMEDA dollars. These come from the CDBG funding that Monroe County receives, which funds that entire division. And we brought forward the same mentality. That team has to, even despite COVID, go out and perform inspections at houses and visit project sites that are in receipt of county CDBG funds. And those activities we expect to continue. And we've received additional funds for this budget year, so there will be more project activity that requires our staff to go out the door. And again, many of those visits are outdoors, and we have had some concerns about certain projects with people not wanting inspections to come into their homes, but same idea applied for this. We expect it'll be a busy year in 2021.
Thank you. Another question through the chair. Can you please provide a breakdown of the cellular telephone appropriations for the department? What devices are being used? Mobile Wi-Fi access points and cellular phones, and also link those up to the personnel titles within that department on who's issued the cell phones and the Wi-Fi access points?
Mr. Chairman, if we can track down that information, I believe County IS is the manager of that, and we will endeavor to provide this prior to the December 8th Ledge meeting.
Thank you. And one more question through the chair. Would you be able to provide a breakdown of the travel appropriations for the department? What travel is being planned? What conferences are being attended in 2021?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
I can address this question,
great.
Mr. Chairman. We do not, at this point in time, have any specific travel planned, but conferences that we must attend, such as there's ongoing training required by the SBA. Our remote conferences, of course, as was the case this past year, these past several months, they do still carry fees for registration. Ongoing professional development is a necessity for our team to stay on top of what programs are available at the federal level, at the state level, et cetera.
Great, thank you. I'm done.
Legislator Baines, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, Mr. Baines.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Through you to the administration, I understand that our employees in this cost center receive some travel reimbursement. Isn't it the case that many municipalities provide automobiles to their employees? Is it in fact the case that by providing mileage, we avoid the cost of purchasing and providing automobiles for our employees? Through you to the administration.
Mr. Chairman, I think in Monroe County government, the number of employee take-home vehicles is been coming down. The number of pooled vehicles is probably relatively static, but there's generally not enough pooled vehicles for all the staff to have one assigned out for any particular travel day. Those all have to be scheduled in advance. Mileage given the local mileage rates and the frequency of travel, mileage is in many instances a better approach than purchasing and maintaining the vehicles in a fleet.
May I add, through the chair, that this is Director List. No, we do not have any employees in the Department of Planning and Development, myself included, who have been assigned a county vehicle. And it's our practice to use our own personal vehicles for outreach activities.
Through you to the administration, Mr. Chair. So you're just reflective listening. So in the past, we actually had more vehicles. The Monroe County had more vehicles, even though we have a larger budget now that we provided to our employees than we do today. Is that what I heard you say, please?
In essence, Mr. Chairman, I guess I'll pick on myself. I had a vehicle. One of the former county attorneys had a vehicle. The HR director had a vehicle. We drive our personal cars now.
Well, thank you so much for your candor in that respect. And since that's anecdotal, I'll assume we can extrapolate from that and assume that there were vehicles provided to other employees other than the three you mentioned. Through you, Mr. Chair.
We actually track that on an annual basis. I know our fleet manager has those records, Mr. Chairman, and we can come up with those.
Thank you. And with respect, through you, Mr. Chair, with respect to the cellular and the Wi-Fi, if our employees are working remotely, do we have a responsibility to provide them with connectivity so that they can perform their positions?
Mr. Chairman, I don't want to speak for all departments and their activities. I'll speak from my own experience in the county. When we issue an employee a cell phone, it's either for their safety or for the manager's convenience in being able to contact, or it is issued for the purpose, smartphones have cameras, is for the purpose of documenting building situations, like our code enforcement officers, can be used with our home inspectors, kitchen inspectors, just as an additional form of documentation.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair, have you found it to be the case in the era of cellular and Wi-Fi connectivity that our employees are available to serve the community more than 40 hours a week because they are provided with these devices?
At the risk of getting in, Mr. Chairman, at the risk of getting in trouble with Department of Labor, I probably will not answer that question. Sure, our employees do not work more than 40 hours without compensation.
I wasn't saying they weren't working without compensation. Through you, Mr. Chair, I'm simply implying that is it possible that the efficacy of their work is enhanced by being provided with these devices?
Mr. Chairman, it's not lost on anyone that the younger workforce today is very connected electronically. In my experience in Monroe County, our workforce does not hesitate to accept and or respond to a text message or an email, regardless of the time of day.
And as a comment, it's been my experience interacting with Director Lists and other employees that's the case. So through you, Mr. Chair, so were we to provide our remote employees with landlines so that they could do their work remotely, is it your analysis that it would be more expensive to provide them with landlines in lieu of cellular devices, Mr. Chair?
Mr. Chairman, I don't think I've done that kind of cost analysis. I'm willing to bet anyone under age 30 doesn't even know what a landline is.
Well, through you, Mr. Chair, thanks for calling me out for my baby boomerness. I'd like to have one final question for Director Lists. Director Lists, I'm excited for 2021 and the prospects. I'd like to throw you kind of a softball question and ask you what you're excited about and what you see will be a great return on investment in the 2021 season. and beyond, what projects you're working on that you're excited about, if you'd like to name one or two. And before you answer, I want to thank you for your work on the Fast Forward initiative. I just heard from one of the restaurant owners in my community how the Fast Forward program may have saved her business. And I know you and your people have worked overtime to process I've heard 2,000 applications for that Fast Forward program. So thank you, Director Liss. And would you, through you, Mr. Chair, would you, Director Liss, like to comment about one or two items you're excited about?
Through the chair, thank you, Legislator Baines, for your kind words. To your question earlier about does staff work hours, more than 40 hours a week, our economic development staff has certainly been working around the clock to get back to those grant applications and make sure that the money is received by the small businesses that have been most impacted by COVID-19. They're working weekends as well. Of course, they're being compensated, but they're working around the clock. And I am excited about 2021 in that economic development, workforce development, and planning will have to be front and center to address the fallout of COVID-19 as it pertains to our area businesses, our excellent workforce, many of whom are displaced by the pandemic. We are going to embark upon the comprehensive plan as Director Franklin referenced. This is going to be the first time that the comprehensive plan for Monroe County has been updated since 1972. 2021 will mark the bicentennial and the third century of existence for Monroe County. We're looking forward to celebrating that bicentennial, and the comprehensive plan is kind of going to mark the beginning of the third century and must be a forward-looking blueprint to help guide decision-making for the county. In addition to the comprehensive plan, and despite economic concerns due to COVID, I can tell you confidentially that Monroe County, COMEDA and MCIDC, our boards and our staff are very busy working with business owners and developers that are interested in locating to Monroe County, expanding to Monroe County, adding jobs in essential industries. We're just as busy right now as we were this time last year, and we plan to see the numbers go up. So we do see a silver lining to the economic concerns of the present. And I'm excited to continue working with my staff and the members of the community to reimagine and re-envision how we do workforce development. I think we have to roll up our sleeves and get more creative and work harder to implement successful, impactful, equitable, and accessible programs to train displaced workers into sustainable career paths and careers in technology and healthcare, et cetera. Our service industry sector was impacted terribly by the pandemic, and we don't know what the future will hold for the service sector. So I think we have to take a good hard look at our service sector workforce and be more proactive in reaching out to those individuals and providing them with important services and connecting them to jobs. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Liss. And that's my final question, and I appreciate your responsiveness.
Legislator DeFlorio?
Yes, Legislator DeFlorio, you have the
Yes,
floor.
thank you. Through the chair, Anna, I want to start by saying thank you. I appreciate the efforts that have gone into Fast Forward. Can I just kind of piggyback on the question with regard to the success of the program? Can you tell me how many applications that you received and the how many awards have been processed and the total dollar amount of those awards? Get a better understanding of just how successful it's been?
Yes, through the chair, thank you, Legislator DeFlorio. We received 2,033 applications during the 2-week window that the application was available. It closed on November 2nd. We are finding that because of the many small businesses that were most impacted by COVID-19 don't have a lot of resources. They might not have a relationship with an accountant. So as we're looking through some of the applications, we're finding some issues, and we're getting that to the applicants to make sure that they signed somewhere, or they added required document. So that's taking up some of the time. But approximately 200 agreements or thereabouts have gone out so far. And just today, an email went out to 231 applicants regarding submission of a revised W-9. But our team is committed. We have a work plan to get all of these dollars out the door to qualified applicants by the end of December, which is the federal deadline. And we do plan to, with the support of the administration, bring on additional, some help from the temp employees that we're bringing on to help with COVID response, to help us with customer service.
Thank you, through the chair. And then how much are you looking in terms of a grand total amount to go out in awards?
Through the chair, we expect, because the grants are in 3 different tiers, depending on the size of the business, you qualify for $10,000, $15,000, or $20,000. We expect between 1,500 and 1,700 grants to go out the door of the 2,033.
Okay, thank you. And then just one other question, I think probably for Mr. Franklin. You indicated that there were no fleet cars for this department, but I noticed on page 420, it looks like there's a chargeback for fleet maintenance.
On page 420?
Correct.
Mr. Chairman, I can figure that out and respond before the vote. I don't believe there are any pooled cars for planning, right?
No, under the previous director, he had a vehicle, but I, as the present director of planning and development, do not have a county-issued vehicle. And there are no pooled vehicles reserved for our department.
Thank you. So I'm sorry, through the chair, so you're saying that this may just be a miscellaneous charge that shouldn't be in there then? Because it's for 1612?
It may, Mr. Chairman, be a legacy cost from the prior administration.
Okay, thank you.
I will verify, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. And I'm sorry, I do have one other additional question through the chair for Anna. In terms of the Fast Forward program, have any of those awards been given to any of the minority or women-owned business, small businesses?
Yes, through the chair, the finance department is handling the execution of the payouts in communication with the applicants. But the first grants that have gone out the door have all gone to minority and women-owned businesses and businesses located in fiscally distressed census tracts. We prioritized those applications over non-minority owned businesses located in more affluent census tracts.
Wonderful. Thank you for that. And then if I could just ask, when you kind of get done at the end of December, if you could provide the legislature with kind of just a tally and a breakdown?
Through the chair, yes, of course.
Thank you. And now I'm done.
Mr. Chairman, Legislator Lee.
Yes, Legislator Lee, you have the floor.
Okay. Through the chair, on page 252 of the budget, are personnel services rising due to the consolidation with workforce development?
Mr. Chairman, on this particular page, there's actually, with the combined economic and workforce development division, one of the FTEs from the former workforce development has transferred into this new merged division, and the department is also creating a new position, and I just lost the title.
Yes, it's a community development assistant.
Thank you.
We received an increase in our CDBG funding from the federal government for the coming budget year, and so we expect project volume to go up, and we'll need additional administrative support on our community development team to assist us with the important affordable housing work and community development work that we do. So those are not local dollars, they're federal.
Okay, well, thank you there.
Is there any further questions? Thank you, Mr. Franklin.
Thank you.
Ms. Liz?
Mr. Chair, Legislator Baines,
Yes, Legislator Bain, you have the floor.
just another question. My interest was sparked by the comment from Director List that when she took over her position from the prior administration, the provision of an automobile to that particular position was ended. Do we know whether or not that's happened elsewhere in the budget? Is this a specific instance pertaining to Director List's job, or Director, Mr. Chair, Budget Director
Legislator
Franklin?
Bain,
You mentioned that you no longer have a car provided.
Legislator Bain, that's not for this committee.
Excuse me?
That's not for this committee. Your question is not for this committee.
The question that relates to the fact that automobiles are provided to employees was just brought up as a part of this discussion within the purview of this committee. And there's a direct nexus to other members of the budget. And I might add, Mr. Chair, that great latitude has been given in these hearings for comments, in fact, last night from Legislator Boyce to go into an extensive discussion of aspects of the zoo that had nothing to do with the budget. So I reiterate, Director Franklin, is this fact that there's an automobile provided to Director List, is that been the case in a number of other instances?
Legislator Bain, this question is more for Ways and Means.
You can ask that question Thursday night at the Ways and Means.
On December 3rd, you can ask that question.
Isn't it the case that I'm not permitted to speak at that meeting because I am not a legislator of record on that committee?
You can have one of your caucus ask that question then.
Yes, one of your caucus can answer that question then.
Thank you, Chairman Will. Thank you, Chairman Will.
Are there any further questions? Thank you, Mr. Franklin.
Thank you.
The next item on the agenda is the approval of minutes. You have the February 25th, 2020 minutes before you. They will stand approved unless the clerk is notified of any changes by the end of the day. Next item on the agenda is new business. Mr. Clerk.
Referral 20-0402, authorize a contract with Monroe Community College for the development, implementation, and management of the Empower Healthcare Program.
Move it, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
Moved by Legislator Smith, second by Legislator DeFlorio. Is there any discussion?
Legislator Smith?
You have the floor, Legislator Smith.
Through the chair, would this one-time fee be paid prior to December 31st, 2020 deadline to spend Federal CARES Act monies?
Mr. Chairman, as long as the legislature grants approval of this referral, we will make this payment.
Okay. Through the chair, is there a plan for funding in place if CARES Act funding expires?
Through the chair, this is Director List. I can address that question. At this point in time, our expectation is to gauge the impact of the program in the 2021 budget year, and then the rest of the Empower contract as it pertains to other industry sectors such as information technology, manufacturing, and other crucial jobs like in administrative services are paid for by COMETA through a contract with MCC, whereby we provide half of the cost of training for each candidate, and the employer provides the other half. So we would anticipate that we'd extend this into outgoing years using COMETA dollars if Monroe County does not receive any additional CARES Act support from the federal government for this type of activity.
Okay, and a follow-up question to that through the chair. I see it's backdated to start in September when the legislature won't act upon it until December. Would it make more sense for the change dates to be beginning of January and go through to the end of the year?
No, Mr. Chairman. The education of healthcare students actually has already begun. It is a 8 or 12-week program, depending on their specific track. And this payment is encumbered under the county's Affordable CARES Act funding, and this payment needs to be made for the services rendered. Those services were rendered prior to December 30th.
Okay. Through the chair, due to COVID-19, there's so many operations that have changed over to more remote. Will the Empower program be able to exist through a remote setting?
Through the chair, because the Empower healthcare training is focused on the essential healthcare sector, this training will actually be offered in hospital, nursing home, and other healthcare settings, including labs at Monroe Community College's downtown campus that are set up to look and feel like healthcare settings. So, and yes, any education that can be provided remotely is being provided remotely and will be provided remotely. So the clinical work will take place in healthcare settings, and then academic work will take place remote. And each of the students participating in the program will receive a free laptop as part of their enrollment. There will be nearly 330 MCC students expected to be trained and educated each year for CNA, home health care aid, and LPN programs.
Okay. Through the chair, as a follow-up question to that, you've mentioned a free laptop being given to the students. Is there any cost to the selected participants to participate in the program?
Through the chair, no, there is not.
Okay. Through the chair, what employers are set to be hiring through this program?
Through the chair, Monroe Community Hospital is one very significant example where there is a shortage of, in particular, certified nursing assistants and LPNs. So we expect that Monroe County will hopefully be able to employ some of these individuals through the Monroe Community Hospital. Other partners that have committed their involvement include Friendly Home, St. Anne's Communities, Highlands Living Center, Highlands at Brighton, and a handful of others.
Thank you. Through the chair, are we requiring any of the graduates to commit to working for Monroe Community Hospital or other county departments for a certain period of time after graduation?
Through the chair, no, we are not. However, the students will be guaranteed a job upon the successful completion of the program, whether it be at Monroe Community Hospital or one of the other partners I mentioned.
Thank you. Through the chair, how will participants be recruited or selected for this program?
Through the chair, our partners at Monroe Community College have developed a very impressive website with marketing materials, and they're performing outreach right now as we speak, and Monroe County, through the Department of Planning and Development, is also getting the word out, in particular through organizations such as Rochester Works, Career Start, and other job placement organizations. And we are also disseminating information about the program through the school districts as well for individuals who are graduating or will be graduating from high school. And we are also partnered with the local regional chapter of the New York State Department of Labor, which provides important services to individuals who are unemployed.
All right, thank you. And I just have one more follow-up question through the chair. Will there be any emphasis on recruiting minority candidates for the program?
Through the chair, yes, there will be. However, I don't know exact metrics, so I can talk to our partners at Monroe Community College and their Workforce Development Division and get a sense of the statistics there. Having seen some of the numbers of, regarding our past programs, they serve a very significant minority population through their workforce programs. So I can follow up on that.
Thank you, I'd appreciate that. I'm all through with my questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any further questions?
Legislator DeFlorio?
Legislator DeFlorio, you have the floor.
Yeah, thank you. Through the chair, just a follow-up question. I know that when we met with the director of Monroe Community Hospital, she expressed concern about their ability to recruit and hire. So I'm wondering if the county is supporting this program with financially, why perhaps we're not requiring students to make some kind of a first commitment to MCH?
Through the chair, that's a great question. MCH is a key partner, employer partner in this initiative, and we expect a good number of those 330 students to be offered jobs at MCH and take those positions, we hope. But I can get you more information about what the students will be required to sign off on. We want to be able to give them options and not require them to go in any one direction, because the need for healthcare workers in Monroe County is imminent right now, and it's needed not just at MCH, but at every other healthcare facility in the county.
Right, understood, but I guess there's a part of me that thinks that we should be taking care of MCH first if we're supporting, financially supporting the program. It's my understanding that we have to at times, sort of have a difficult time with staffing and maintaining staff there, and part of it is because of burnout. So I just think it would make sense to make sure that those positions are filled there first.
Through the chair, thank you. I've taken that note, and I'll convey that message over to MCC, and I'll get back to you.
Thank you.
Are there any further questions? Not seeing them. All those, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The item carries. Next item.
That's our last item.
Okay. Are there any other matters to come before this committee? There being no matters, the November 24th, 2020 meeting of the Planning and Economic Development Committee stands adjourned. The next meeting of the Planning and Economic Development Committee will be Tuesday, December 22nd, 2020 at 5 p.m.